la musique? Parce qu'en fait, tu as commencé aussi, on te connaît beaucoup avec l'image punk rock.
I like some punk rock music. I like more experimental, strange music. Punk rock was fast rock and roll. That's okay, I like that. But say things like Perubu, The Residents, stranger music is more interesting. And I'm in a band now, so it's really fun for me to make music and make psychedelic, like 60s psychedelic music. That's the one thing I really like.
Et tu as travaillé avec les Résidents?
I met them long ago, and they helped me record a song. They helped me record 2 songs, and we're very friendly. I did some graphic work for them, but I never did a Residents cover. They did their own album covers.
Et comment ça s'est passé la rencontre avec Art Spiegelman? Est-ce que il connaissait déjà ton travail? Comment ça s'est fait le lien avec lui?
Oh, I'm not sure, but I think that my work started appearing in punk rock magazines, in Slash magazine and a magazine called Wet magazine. And Art and Francoise noticed my work and contacted me because they were beginning Raw, and they invited me to be in Raw. So I really met them. Perhaps Bruno Richard came to the US and meeting all the underground cartoonists that he could in the world and putting them together. So actually, Bruno was kind of a connector in some ways of cartoonists. So, but that was long ago. It's about 79, 78 or 9 I contacted them.
What was your first collaboration with Art Spiegelman?
Gee, they invited me, this was long ago. They just invited me to do some pages for Raw magazine. And so I could continue with my character Jimbo. I invented Jimbo in 1974, but I couldn't find a place. In Texas, nobody wanted my work, so I moved to California and started making work. And so Raw magazine was a place. Slash first, and then Raw. I could draw Jimbo.
Et tu faisais aussi de la peinture en plus de la bande dessinée à cette époque?
I've been painting since I was a child, because my father's a painter. He's a cowboy, an Indian painter. And so I was always around oil paint. And I painted with oils when I was a child. And then when I went to college, I majored in painting and I switched to acrylic painting. And I still work in acrylic. So painting was the first thing. Cartoons, I started doing because of Zap comics. Because they seemed like similar to painting theory in a way, of moving forward, of breaking rules, and so I like that.
Moi j'ai toujours vu en fait son travail comme même de bande dessinée, comme de la peinture en même temps que c'est éclaté. Et je voulais savoir en fait si lui faisait par exemple un parallèle entre la bande dessinée et la peinture.
Right, I did. At first I thought that I could do painting shows that would be narrative, and that you would go into the painting show and it would be a whole story. And I tried to do that, but I didn't like it. So I decided, okay, comics, you read the book in bed, and that's where you read a comic book, and paintings, you see them in a gallery. So they're separate things. They're related in that they're personal, and it's an exploration. But they have different attributes. I think a comic book is trying to seduce you into believing the story and entering the story. A painting is just trying to stop you in front of the painting for a minute, and maybe it's a color sensation, you get a feeling from a painting. But a comic book, you forget you're looking at a drawing because you're thinking about the story, and so the drawings are kind of invisible a little bit in a comic book, I think. So.
How did you start your work with the show about Herman Pee-wee?
Pee-wee Herman.
Yeah, Pee-wee Herman.
It's a long story, but it has a short beginning. I became very well known in Los Angeles for my comic books and for my album covers. And so a lot of people ask me to do things, and I do a lot of things for free, like all my comics were drawn for free, and commercial art was something else. So I was contacted by Paul Rubens to do a poster for a show. And I didn't know about him, so I went to see him perform, and I realized that he was very similar to a group I was working with in Texas, where we did performance art, and we did puppets, and we did comedy and music. And so I thought, this is similar, and so I asked, I would like to design everything for his show. And that's when we started working together. It was about 79, I think. And we worked for 1 year on a stage show, and then many things happened after that. We got a date. We wrote a script for the first movie for Paramount Pictures, and they didn't like it. They passed on it. And so then they wrote the second version and made the movie. And so it was really like many adventures with Pee-wee, actually.
Je trouve que le travail qu'il a fait aussi pour les emballages, et les emballages pour les jouets, et toutes sortes de choses pour Herman. Pee-wee aussi m'a vraiment influencé.
Oh, you like the toys too?
Ouais.
Thank you. No, this was so different because it's working with corporations, you know.
Mais d'ailleurs, je trouve ça assez intéressant en fait, parce que comment lui il gère, il s'inspire beaucoup de packaging, de choses comme ça, de personnages de publicité, de dessins animés qu'il refait, il revisite. Et qu'est-ce que ça lui fait par exemple comment il voit maintenant son travail quand on lui propose de faire des choses comme ça, par exemple l'emballage de jouets.
When I'm doing commercial work, there's a client, and a client has an objective, and I'm trying to help them reach their objective. And that's okay. It's okay, in a way to make money, and I try to do a good job, but I always want to go back to my personal work. Comics are personal, my paintings are personal, and I do a lot of other things, and so that's what I'm really trying to do, is just go home and work on my own things. You know. But commercial art can be fun, and also, so if I have a painting show, usually maybe 1,000 people might see the show, or 500 people. But if you do a TV show or you do something in a magazine, then 10,000 people see it. And so it was very easy for me to get famous as an illustrator first before as a painter. I mean, people think I just began painting, and I'm painting all my life, and really a fan of painting and modern art. Like since I was about 11 years old, I wanted to be a modern artist, and which is maybe crazy, but that was what I wanted. I got my wish.
Do you draw or paint each day, every day?
Every day? No, I try. I try to do something. Sometimes there's days where you just stare at the wall, you know. There's some days when I make notes. I don't necessarily, I probably do draw every day, and painting is a little slower. One day is painting it white again, painting it white again. So it's a slow procedure. And I like to go, it's good that I do many things so that I can paint, do comics, write, make music, and so I can work on a lot of things. On music, it's for 1 day a week. On the band I'm in, we play from 7:30 in the evening until 5 in the morning, 1 day a week. So we work all night on music. So that way we can achieve something, hopefully, move ahead.
So technically, do you have some rituals? How do you proceed?
My rituals of working?
Yeah. Do you?
Yes, I have to drink chocolate milk to start with. Chocolate milk in the morning and chocolate milk in the evening. And I admit I smoke marijuana. I'm a marijuana smoker for, since 1972, I think. And
Est-ce qu'il pense que la drogue a une influence sur son travail?
It's more of a... There's a lot of worrying when you start to do work, like, waiting for the mood, waiting. And I have to admit, when I smoke pot, I don't worry so much. It's just kind of like, okay, I'm here. Maybe I'll make art, maybe I don't. But a lot of times, a lot of art is kind of worrying, It's kind of like about stupid things, things that are in the way. So that's what I get from it, I think. I think with marijuana, which I don't like drugs, I don't like hard drugs. I don't drink really very much, and but I don't know. I would never smoke a blunt or smoke giant amounts of marijuana. That would be. I don't want to be paralyzed. I want to do things. My first reader, I see what you mean. No, it's really. I'm really pleasing myself. So I think I want to make, I think in some ways that my readers, the people that like my work, they'll go where I want to go. And if I change, they expect me to change. And I'm always changing in what I do. And so I think I don't worry about it too much, really.
How do you know when your work is finished?
Oh, I want to finish it soon. Because if I work on it too long, I ruin it. You know, so I'm trying to make a few steps, a painting in a few steps. Because my paintings aren't very thick. I don't like, acrylic paint looks like plastic if it gets too thick. So I like to leave it where you still see the tooth of the canvas or the paper a little bit. So it kind of is sensitive to the surface of the painting. And if it goes on too long, I have to destroy it and start over.
And materials and tools are very important for your creation?
Which is?
Materials, tools, quality of paper, or quality of colors?
Paper paintings, I painted on paper for about 30 years, and now I'm painting only on, I painted on canvas all those years, but I decided to paint more on canvas in the last few years. And I do about one painting a month on canvas. And I do a lot of preparatory drawings. I might do a lot of drawings before I find a drawing that wants to be a painting. And so I think with me, I don't worry so much. I know I'm an artist, and I know I'll come back and try to make art tomorrow, you know. So it's not like, if I don't make art one day, I don't go, oh, I'm terrible, I'm not making art. I go like, I'm in it for the long haul, I'm stuck.
J'avais eu une conversation avec Bruno Richard justement sur son travail et il me disait que tu voulais tout réintégrer, tu voyais quelque chose, un paquet de cigarettes ou un paquet de céréales, tu voulais réintégrer toujours, redessiner. Est-ce que tu travailles dans l'urgence?
I think my work looks very simple, but there's a lot of work behind the work. There's a lot of false starts, and yeah, I have a lot of toys. My basement, we live in a big house, and I have containers, maybe this big, full of toys, and I have maybe 40 or 50 of those containers. It's kind of crazy. All this cheap plastic stuff in my house, you know. But books, I love books. I have thousands of books, probably. Yeah, and things do come out of my collector obsessions, I think. In the world of my comics, I think that there's all these kind of creatures together, and Art Spiegelman actually helped me in a way, because when I first started doing comics, there's like the humans, and then there's the cartoon characters and the robots, and they weren't all in the same world. And Art said, they're all cartoons, you know? So now it's like they're all together in the same world. It's very helpful. In my cartoons, all of my stories, they take place on Mars. I never say it very much, but it's all in a Martian colony in the future. So Jimbo lives on Mars, you know, and so my next book is called Del Tokyo, and it's a collection of the small strips that ran in a Japanese reggae magazine for many years. And so we'll collect 200 strips, and it's very experimental and surreal, but it's about the Martian colony. And so then when studying Mars, I started getting my own theories about Mars, you know. I think Mars was hit by a gigantic planet. It got hit by something. It's got scars. And so I think that's interesting. I think it took the atmosphere away, maybe. But that's my personal craziness.
Could you tell us a kind of keywords to sum up or to resume your work?
Gee, well, I think life is pretty short, you know, so I'm interested in doing things while I'm alive, not while I'm dead. I'll be very boring when I'm dead, so I hope I can do a lot of things. One thing I would say, the other things I do that are interesting to me is in the last maybe 8 years, I've been working on light shows, like psychedelic hippie light shows with my friend Joshua White. And he did the light shows for Woodstock and for the Fillmore East, because I was doing a little light shows in my studio, and then I met him, and now we do big light shows. And so it's another thing where you're painting with light, and you're interpreting music, and so that's been very exciting. And I'm in a group with a lot of writers, so I'm trying to improve my writing. So I'd like to do all kinds of things. I can't do mathematics, I'm not logical, but the things I can do, I would like to try to do.
So, do you doubt of your talent? Do you scare of something particularly?
I'm sorry.
Do you doubt?
Do I doubt my talent? No. I have this much talent, so it's okay. I can work with this. I know there's people that can draw much better and very facile, beautiful drawings. And I'm left-handed and clumsy. For years, I couldn't find the tools to work with. Like, what can I draw with? Like, all of this work was like trying to find the tools also. In the last few years, I found some tools I can work with, but it changes the way my work looks because the tool, it does what it wants to do too. You know, the tool has a wish. And so I don't know, I'm happy. The music's very exciting now because, again, like, I was raised in this religion, this horrible religion, I'm sorry, but it was not fun, and there was no music. I couldn't really be in a rock and roll band when I was young, so I can be in one now, and that's been exciting, because I'm in a band, we play once a week, we play out once a month. I'm the oldest person in the room, because it's all like 20-year-old people, you know. No, and everything today in Brooklyn, it's noise, you know, so everyone's like bleeding out of their ears, you know. And then our band actually plays psychedelic music, so I think it's a relief in a way, maybe. But it's fun. And so, yeah, I hope to just, you know, keep painting more and more. I think it's always, it's not horrible, but it's always a struggle to try to figure out, you know, the subtleties of your work. It's like the thickness of the paint is always worrying me all the time. Is it thick? Is it thin? You know, so those are little problems, but they're all interesting. It's not bad. I have ideas for a lot of things that I haven't done yet, so I hope to get to do more, like sculpture. I have sculptural ideas. And I used to do puppet shows. I would like to do more puppet shows maybe sometime. Maybe do some old puppet plays from like Ben Jonson or some old plays. So we'll see.
Do you have a team? A main team, like the same. How can I explain that?
You mean like assistants or anything, or crew, people I hang out with?
No. A team. Tema. It's a main subject. An obsession about you.
Well,
if for instance, if
right, I see what you mean.
someone come in this show, doesn't know anything about you, how could you define your work, for instance?
My cartoon work, the subtext of my cartoon work is resisting systems of control. That's really what the cartoon work is about. There's always these encroaching systems trying to control the individual. And in art in general, I'm fascinated about the power of the individual and the power of something very small to make something larger happen. Say, for instance, in the light shows. I decided to do very small light shows in my studio, and I made little posters to try to reinvent the 60s. There were certain things I liked about the 60s, light shows, psychedelic music, and psychedelic posters. So I made them in miniature to try to magically reinvoke the 60s.
J'ai vraiment plongé dans son univers pour faire les livres aussi, et que je connais depuis longtemps. J'ai l'impression qu'il va vers l'abstrait ou il revient vers l'abstrait. Parce que quand on voit les premières œuvres, c'est presque abstrait. Et presque abstrait en fait. Je me demandais qu'est-ce qu'il avait comme relation avec l'abstrait.
Yes, my new work, my very newest work doesn't have lines anymore. There's no lines, like the last few pages in the book, you see. And so this is a really kind of shocking to me, you know. It's like I'm working on paintings that they don't want lines. And so the look is softer. Because one thing about the lines that I like is you put a black line next to colors, it makes the color brighter. But if you put the black line on, it stops the vibration of the color. So in the new work, there's more vibration, I think. And also now I'm working more, very recently, I'm always working from sources, but...
Par exemple, il m'a envoyé ses dernières œuvres où justement il n'y avait plus de ligne, c'était juste de la couleur avec des personnages, mais je Je me demande si les prochains travaux vont finalement faire apparaître des personnages ou juste de la couleur.
One time, by way of answering that, one time I think, okay, I'm going to live 100 years, or 80 years, 50 years, who knows, I'm past 50, I already did that. And so I made a theory of like, because my work changes maybe every 10 years, there's another step. So if you live to be 100, it's only 10 steps. And so I made a projection of 1,000 years. If I could live for 1,000 years, like what the steps would be. And, I don't know if I found out anything or not, but it was interesting to think about. For 10 years, I could do like oval paintings, or they could get, right now they're very wide. The new paintings are maybe 7 feet wide and 3 feet tall, so they're like a landscape a little bit. So yeah, next, I don't know, after this, I hope to just keep living, I had a terrible LSD trip in the 70s, and in this LSD trip, I saw 10,000 wrong directions, like wrong, it's very beautiful, it's interesting, but don't go that way. But at the very end of the trip, I started seeing beautiful, no lines, but just color compositions raining down like rain, thousands and thousands of these things. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now a little bit. I don't know if it's the end. Is it the end? I hope not. But, or maybe I have to do thousands of them, but I'm not really sure. I would like to do, I think there'll be more lines. One thing that was hard for me to do was make the lines in color. Because black or gray, there's subtle colors in the lines, but it's really much more complicated if you're like doing red lines or green lines, like the spaces jumps around. So maybe lines in color, maybe, I'm not sure. Or maybe like your work actually has more organic kind of things in it. There's more plant material, there's more kind of an earth thing in your work. It's not all just figures, it's also the environment.
Mais moi je me suis beaucoup justement intéressé aux personnages et je m'intéresse de plus en plus justement à ce qu'il y a en dehors, c'est-à-dire par exemple juste des décors, des formes, et c'est pour ça en fait quand je voyais le travail aussi, puisqu'on a travaillé ensemble aussi avec la galerie, quand on voit les premiers travaux là, avec les peintures très épaisses, j'avais l'impression que les derniers travaux presque reprenaient ce genre de forme en tout cas. C'est personnel. Et du coup, je trouve ça intéressant aussi de voir ça chez quelqu'un qui a fait beaucoup de personnages comme ça. Presque pas d'épurer, mais de prendre comme le squelette de son dessin en fait. Du coup, c'est assez intéressant.
But what I was saying to Blanquet is I see in his, like the figure's important in his work, but also the environment's very important. Like the ground's important, the plants are important. And I think that's true because I think I'm a landscape painter in some ways. I paint signs, but they allude to what humans bring to Earth. It's about human art. I mean, I could make art for dogs, but it would be very different if I was making art for dogs. Than I'm making it for humans, then it has to reflect some human condition.